Welcome to the special Darien Board of Education Facilities meeting, Thursday, March 11th, 2021. Our first item on the agenda is a presentation and discussion on solar panel proposal from Advanced Energy. Dr. Adley?
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I believe we have a representative from Advanced Energy Efficiencies, Adam Patrick. I think will be joining us shortly. We're excited about the opportunity here behind the scenes. Mr. Lynch, Mr. Ruddle have been working on the potential for green energy, and that was something that the board had indicated that it would be interested in pursuing. And there's a wee bit of history of what has come before. Ox Ridge is going to be all hooked up, so to speak, conjugate for solar also. So this is an opportunity that we have to pursue essentially solar on some of our buildings. And this is an opportunity this morning just to hear that particular proposal. It's sort of time sensitive in some ways with the ZERAC opportunity that exists, and there's a window of opportunity for that. But we're pleased this morning to be able to make a short presentation, and I'll ask Mike to give a wee bit of context as he's provided most of the work behind the scenes. So Mike, will you just give a wee update to the board on what we're going to see?
Sure. Just a little background. We have two solar systems already, one at the high school and one at Ox Ridge. They're both very small. They've been in service since 2009. So we have been reaping the benefits in a small way for a number of years. And in 2018, the town sent out an RFP for a solar project, and the timing of that project just didn't match up with the timing of our roofing projects. We actually ran a study for Tokenique School, and it was found that the cost of removing the panels to install a new roof and putting the panels back on would cost more than the amount of energy we would save at that building. So we switched our strategy and decided to pursue solar opportunities as new roofs were put on our buildings. And so we have a new roof on this building. We're going to have a new roof on Holmes and Hindley this summer. Next summer, Royal. So this project mirrors our new roofs being installed. And so we're also contemplating a slightly different approach than the town. The town used an RFP. We have a state-approved vendor, ABS, that is they're our energy management equipment vendor, and we've worked with them on several lighting projects. We did the hallways at all the schools have been turned over to LED lighting. About half of our exit signage is now LED lighting with emergency light backup. They're also approved as our sole source vendor for our energy management systems with the state through the Ox Ridge building project. So the timing of this proposal, using this energy management firm as the lead consultant, is going to follow our roofing project outlined in the capital project. And the timeline we're hoping to follow is the ZREC, which stands for Zero Emissions Renewable Energy Credits, is the end of July of this year. That program stops. Whether it gets started up again next year is still up for debate. Once a project is submitted and approved, you have 2 years from the date of approval to finish the installation, which also falls in nicely with our roof project. And with that, this is where we are now with the project. I should add also, I sent a copy of this proposal to Rusty Schreiner from the Ox Ridge Building Committee. He is very, very familiar with solar installations across the United States. And I asked him to please take a look at the proposal. I sent it to him last week. I asked him to take a look at it for me. He agreed he would, and he would get back to me sometime before we actually put ink on paper.
So if the board's okay, we'll go forward with the short presentation.
Yep, perfect.
Mike, can you just do the introduction to?
Well, this is, I believe the presenter is going to be Adam from Advanced Energy Efficiencies. And his firm, as you'll see in the presentation, they can act as everything from a project manager to a designer to an installer to a maintainer of solar energy systems. They have worked with the multiple municipalities throughout Connecticut, and they came highly recommended when we did some checks on who they were.
So I'm just trying to spot who I'm talking to here. It was Adam, but who is it? Lisa Burkett. Is it Lisa? It was not. Is it Lisa? I don't think it's Lisa. What was this?
Sorry.
Is it Adam I'm talking to? Is it Adam this morning?
Yes, it's Adam. For whatever reason, my computer is stuck my wife's name. I apologize, everybody. Good morning.
I'm not touching that. Okay. Adam, good morning and welcome. Thank you for the presentation that you have shared with the administration. It's now before the board facility committee. So we're pleased to welcome you virtually down to Darien this morning. And you have the floor. You can go ahead and present virtually. I think you have those rights. Thank you for joining us, Adam.
Thank you, everybody, and good morning. And we really appreciate this opportunity to speak to everybody today in the town of Darien. One of the things that you'll see here in the presentation is basically the mission statement, and the mission of all of the communities that we're working with is to steadily move to a smart and green energy practices throughout the community. From installing solar, you're going to see some new things coming down the pipeline here with standalone and battery connected solutions. You're going to see EV taking off here in the future. But all this makes us focus on reducing the steadily rising energy costs and lock into long-term savings. So what we look at is improving Darien's long-term sustainability and also reducing that carbon footprint. And the nice thing is that we do this with avoiding capital costs for new technologies and these types of initiatives. The objective is to present this to the Board of Education and to for the board to understand by the end of the presentation, and some of the things that Mr. Lynch was touching on is the ZREX emission, zero emission renewable energy credit. And we looked at the Hindley Elementary School, Royal Elementary School, Holmes Elementary School, Middlesex Middle School, the central office for the Board of Ed, and Oxbridge Elementary School. Just so, we know that there are different timelines for all these. We are making some assumptions throughout the presentation, but the main thing, on the timelines. So, we do understand that, and we're just trying to put everything into one presentation. And then what we would look at to be able to achieve the financing is to have a non-binding memorandum of understanding, which offers a locked fixed rate of 8.5 cents for 25 years and a power purchase agreement. And that provides a no cost, no money out of pocket solution with no maintenance costs, no operational. And you're basically, one of the things you'll see me touch on in the presentation is you currently have, I believe, we'll get to it later in the presentation, but a supply contract of 8.6 cents. And that supply contract is just literally, probably anywhere from a year to, they typically go from a year to 4-year window. Well, now this would be able to basically have your supply delivered from your own roof behind the meter. So now it's actually going to offset some of those delivery charges, and it's fixed for 25 years. As Mr. Lynch touched on, we have successfully worked with multiple school systems adopting renewable energy practices. We do assume the role as a project developer, or we act as a owner's representative. A lot of times this works out for a lot of communities because there's a lot of moving parts to going renewable, from, being able to look at energy consumption, being able to analyze the electric bills and actually understand what is being offset by solar and what those actual costs are. But then also from a timing standpoint of how the programs work in the state, the ZREC program is an auction based submission process. So it's not like everybody just gets to go ahead and build solar. For 0 to 100 kW, it is kind of an open enrollment. But for anything over 100 kW, you have a 2-week window that goes into a bid process. So being the owner's representative and being able to work with the town officials or between the municipality and the Board of Ed, and then also legal counsel on, being able to set up an RFQ and RFP to meet all local requirements. And all this is done in order to set up a solar financing option that requires no capital and provides savings to the town of Darien. And AEE will employ its expertise and experience to oversee all these solar projects throughout the construction process. So one of the other things through this project developer and owner's representative role is that we are on site. We have personnel, project managers that are very familiar with how solar is installed. But as this morning, we are working with one of the large water companies in the state of Connecticut, and we have a representative there. We have a container that's arriving. We have panels and material that are arriving. We're there from the day that, we meet like we are today, through materials arriving, site visits being performed, and through the installation and actually overseeing it being turned on. And how, our role is really expanded is, through these applications, through the zero emissions program, the state has to go through a very complex way to basically understand what the size of the system is and making sure everything is submitted properly. Managing all the purchases, making sure that all the materials are tier 1 and the panels come with a 25-year warranty. The inverters are warranted for 20 years, the racking systems, all that is very important to understand. Also review with the municipal officials on the solar proposal and how they're actually going to save the money, where they're going to see the actual solar savings and how it's offset on the electric bill. Determine the optimal size and configuration. As you'll see later on in the presentation, we have put together some optimal sizes for the consumption and also roof constraints, following all the proper ventilation codes for safety, for fire safety, as well as proper setbacks for building codes. Overseeing the construction of the solar facilities, managing the interconnection process with Eversource. As the Board of Ed is probably very familiar with, working with the utilities, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of timelines, there's a lot of process that needs to be accomplished. And we work with the town and the Board of Ed and the architectural people, as well as the engineers, to make sure all these meetings are met and held to the highest standards. Coordinate the energizing of the system. These systems, you don't just, put them in and be able to turn them on. As you're probably familiar with, Eversource requires the town to do an inspection first, and then they submit a piece of paper to Eversource. Eversource then has time to come out, review the system, check the meters, and also do what's called a witness test. We're there through this whole process. And then it's also important that these systems are properly registered, not only with Eversource, but through the PURA, the Public Utility Regulatory Authority, as well as the ISO, the Independent System Operator of New England. And we assure that the solar projects conform to all the state Connecticut laws and regulations. As you'll start to see here, we're getting into the solar designs. First school that we have here is Henley. As we are aware, right now, the only roof, can you guys see my cursor moving? Just, is that possible?
Yes.
Okay, So this is the first roof that will be replaced, I believe this summer. I don't have my little sheet here in front of me, but but as the additional roofs come to completion, this is a full scale view on what could happen for Henley School with all of the proper walking spaces, all the proper setbacks for fire ventilation. And as you'll see, that's a 195 kW system. The initial production of this system is going to be 253,630 kilowatt hours. And as you'll see here in column B, this is the current consumption at the school, 322,560. And as you see, that's a 78% offset by solar. And then what you have here in column C is your utility rate. This is your all-in cost for power. And we go through diligently and, we can actually sit down with the electric bills and really, hone into this. But all you're doing is you're taking that all-in cost for power and dividing it by the actual consumption. That's your all-in actual utility rate. The solar that's being generated, 253,630 kilowatt hours, has a solar offset of 10.4 cents. Now you'll notice there's a delta, right, between what is being offset by solar and what the utility actually charges. And it's very important to understand this, and I'll go through it here so this way we don't go through it on every one. But solar operates in a bell curve, right, where you have January down at the bottom of one side, December at the bottom of the other. And what happens is it's passive energy. So for delivery charges, solar does not offset all those charges. So that's why you see there's still about 7 cents here in delivery charges that solar cannot offset. This is one of the things that's very critical for people to understand when they're going solar, to understand the true benefits of what solar has. With that fixed rate of 8.5 cents for 25 years, you can see that there's no fluctuation. This will never be a variable. It will never increase. So we have a net savings in year one of $4,819. And again, we do know, like for the case in Henley, that this here is actually going to be done in stages. But this is a good snapshot of the opportunity for when all the roofs are done in actual savings. As we move on to Royal Elementary School, here we have 154 kW DC solar system. And you'll notice that we have left off 2 roofs per future projects. So these roofs here are the good usable roofs immediately for solar. And that's 154 kW in solar. Here, what that represents is 211,300 kilowatt hours, which is an 84% offset to the current consumption of 250,480 kilowatt hours. That current rate at Royal Elementary School is 18.4 cents. And again, the solar generating 211,300, and it's offsetting 10.6 cents. And here again at 8.5 cents fixed, year one savings of $4,437, and over the 25 years, $340,497. One of the other things I didn't touch on the first slide that I'll cover on this slide is that you'll notice in column D that that the solar actually goes down by 0.5% per year. This is a recognized practice in solar that we had degradation of the panels from constantly sitting in the sun. So they will lose about 0.5% per year. What we are seeing is it's not falling off in year one. We've had panels now installed for over 7 years, and we're not even seeing that drop off yet. The other thing that you'll notice here in the utility rate is the national assumption for utility rate increase is 4%. What we use is only 3%, as the Connecticut Green Bank and other agencies in the state utilize in their presentations as well, is a 3% utility rate increase. Holmes Elementary School, 159 kW system. As we do know, some of these roofs will be done sooner than later. But again, this is a true snapshot of what could fit with proper setbacks from ventilation and mechanical equipment on the roof. Here that 159 kW system is going to produce 206,050 kilowatt hours for 74% offset. Current consumption at the school is 280,000 kilowatt hours. The utility rate there from the utility bill is 18.5 cents. That 206,050 kilowatt hours has a solar offset again of 10.6 cents with a fixed PPA rate of 8.5 cents for again net savings of $4,368, or over the 25 years, $333,442. The next school, which is a much larger system, this would be a large ZREC submission. This here is Middlesex Middle School, 425 kW solar system. This here, as you can see, we've really observed everything that you could possibly see on this roof, from gas lines to water returns from chillers. Everything is really been taken into consideration on this roof. So here what we have is a 425 kW solar system producing an initially 552,500 kilowatt hours, with the annual consumption at this school of 1,033,280 kilowatt hours, a utility rate of 18.6 cents, and generating 552,500 at an offset rate of 10.6 cents in year one, and having a fixed PPA rate of 8.5 cents. The net savings is $11,824. And again, at Middlesex Middle School here, that is almost $900,000 in savings over 25 years. We then move on to the central office. This here, we did not use any of the roofs that could be seen via the parking lot or the street to keep the aesthetics of the building, as it's a very nice building coming up Leroy Street. And so this is all only on the flat portion of the roof. This is a 26 kW system. And as you'll see here, producing 33,670 kilowatt hours, we're providing a 16% offset, with the current consumption there being 207,200 kilowatt hours. The current utility rate is 17.9 cents. The solar generated of 33,670 has an offset of 10.5 cents, with a net savings of $673 year one and $53,000 over 25 years. The Ox Ridge Elementary School, we know is going to be totally changed. So with that being said, we did look at some of the plans and try to kind of do a layover on some of the CAD drawings that we received. And here's 163 kW solar array. That 163 kW system is producing 221,300 kilowatt hours. The current assumption is almost 600,000, 599,730, with a utility rate of 18.4 cents. That system generating 221,300 kilowatt hours with a solar offset of 10.6 cents provides a net savings of $4,647 year one, with a $356,612 savings over the 25 years. In summary, across all these locations, it means a lot. for greenhouse gas impact and the carbon that's sequestered by moving to a green energy program. And we take pride in really making the community aware by installing 1.12 megawatts of solar with an initial production of almost 1.5 megawatts of power. That PPA rate fixed at 8.5 cents. Again, so you're not, going in and out of a supply market. You have, and if everything, and this is that hypothetical, right? We know everything's not going to come on at the same time in year one, but when all the systems merge together, a year one savings that would be achieved is $30,769 at no expense to the community. And over the 25 years, $2.3 million in savings, 1,045 metric tons of CO2, and carbon sequestered equivalent of 1,365 acres of forest being planted. The financial benefits to the town is basically creating this portfolio. We have a favorable 25-year PPA financing commitment for the town of Darien. Again, that hypothetical of it, if it was all able to come on in year one, at the same time, you have that $30,769 in savings. It is a locked in estimate of 2.3 million. And this is going with the current supply rate that was provided of 8.66 cents in energy, with no upfront capital cost, no maintenance cost. And as we touched on before, and Mr. Lynch touched on, this is the last year for the Connecticut ZRAC program. Currently, the legislators up in Hartford at the Capitol are talking about a new program. Some things are on the docket in order to be presented to PURA, as well as DEEP, Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. But at this moment, that program has not been completely identified or put forward. And there is a 2-year window for these systems to become operational as well. And I will open it up for questions and anything that I can answer.
Just to clarify one question, I'll turn it over to the chair to facilitate board questions. It looks like, Adam, thank you for your presentation. It looks like you were able to include the Axe Ridge clearly in your presentation this morning. I'm assuming you feel as if you have enough information to actually complete that. Is that, since you included it, I'm making that assumption?
Yes. So that was, we were scrambling. We tried to get it into the one that we were able to send in, and we were having some technical difficulty on the CAD file. So we apologize that we weren't able to get it into the one that we emailed, but we were able to incorporate it in for this morning.
Well, we appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Burkett. Open it up to board questions. Mrs. Parent.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. This sounds incredibly exciting for our district and for our town. And I'm just wondering, it all seems very positive. Is there any downside at all to this?
No, the downside is just that you by going solar, you have the ability to have a lock on that supply rate. So regardless of going into the future, you're going to need electricity to run these facilities. And, you're at the current market rate of 8.6 cents, which I'm sure you guys had, a lot of people trying to offer that supply rate. We see that rate only going higher into the future. And by the solar investment being done, the investors are committing to being able to, lock in that rate of 8.5 cents. And again, where your supply portion of your electric bill, that is only one portion, where with going in through the current program that the state offers, the solar is being put in behind the meter, which then also offsets some delivery charges. So there's a higher benefit now by being able to lock into this rate.
Thank you.
Other board questions?
Yeah, Dennis, I don't know if you can see me.
Yeah, we can see you.
I I jotted down 6 questions, so I'll take them one at a time if that's okay.
Please.
The first one being, how many districts or towns has AEE engaged with as the preferred vendor? I think it was mentioned earlier that they've been named the preferred vendor of, statewide for school districts.
Not statewide. I think Mr. Lynch mentioned that ABS is. Mr. Lynch, do you want to clarify the first portion of that?
Yeah, ABS is a preferred vendor for the Allerton energy management systems that we use in the buildings. And the state has approved them as a sole source vendor for the energy management system we have designed into the Ox Ridge project. And Advanced Energy would work as a subcontractor to ABS.
And John, to AE standpoint, we worked with the town of Bethel. We're doing the 2 schools in the track and field building currently, the town of Bethany, Naugatuck, and also city of West Haven. We did their wastewater treatment facility with fuel cells.
Would this be the largest project that you engaged in local?
No, Naugatuck is Naugatuck. We have 3 fuel cells at the wastewater treatment facility. That was over a $6 million project in itself. And we're doing currently a cogen project at the high school with another megawatt solar for the high school in Naugatuck, and also 5 other buildings. We're currently doing City Hill Middle School. Maple Hill was already finished, and we have Andrew Ave. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but another 5 in Naugatuck. So Naugatuck is the largest, then Bethany, then Bethel.
Okay. My second question is, if the town was to self-fund and install the solar systems themselves and self-manage, I understand the capital benefits up front, but I'm sure they come at a cost. I'm just wondering if somebody's done the cost-benefit analysis of basically outsourcing the construction and the 25-year contract versus the town executing it itself. I don't know if anybody's looked at that or can kind of subjectively talk about that.
I could tell you, John, from our standpoint, we've done this with other communities, and the biggest benefit that's being passed through the investors is that towns cannot take advantage of the ITC. ITC stands for Investment Tax Credit, and they can also not take advantage of the depreciation. So when you go through the full model of only being able to have your solar offset savings with the ZRECs, it's about anywhere between 9 and 12 years to see a return.
Okay, great. That's thanks for that answer.
Yep.
Dennis, can I keep going?
Yes, please.
So the ZREC, I guess you just addressed that. So that would be if the ZREC expires and we don't take advantage of it, then we lose the tax event or the that tax credit that you just mentioned.
Yeah,
goes away.
The ZREC and the ZREC is offered through the utilities. So that's part of the renewable portfolio standard that all utilities need to follow. Zero emissions renewable energy credits is what is offered in the state of Connecticut, and ITC and depreciation are federal tax benefits. So they're separate.
Okay. In the assumptions that you outlined, there was no kilowatt demand increase amongst our schools or our facilities. Have you run a scenario if there's a 2 to 3% increase, or have you looked back historically at the increase of the kilowatt hour usage or demand?
So I just popped back to Henley for a second. Can you just maybe want to understand your question and have something?
So if I look at column B, current consumption goes out 25 years and it's basically stable at 322,560. I'm just wondering, is that consistent with the past? And like
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
it looks
So
like a conservative assumption in terms of savings.
30, we did 36 months, and we took the non-COVID time. So this
Right.
is prehistoric data, pre-COVID. So this is going from February before COVID to a year before, basically going backwards, and then also the year before that. So we had access to look at that that consumption. The utility allows you to go 36 months. And
Was there any growth?
well, then we ran into COVID, so it's actually been down.
No, understood. I guess
Okay.
what I'm saying is
No,
there a
there was
natural increase in consumption,
No,
over time
and-
as we plug in more devices?
No, not
Okay.
it hasn't. Yeah, I mean, are you going to see a 1% to 3% difference here and there? Yes. Could that be just from the temperature, and running we've had a colder winter or hotter summer,
Okay. I have two more. Is the 25-year purchase agreement standard or required?
No,
Is there a look back at any point, or is there an option that we as a district could choose? It just seems like that's pretty static for an extremely long time period.
Yep. So the typical, not typical, the power purchase agreements are basically 20 or 25 years. And what most communities tend to say is, okay, we'll just run it out for the warranty of the complete system. So the panels are warranted for 25 years. We do, and the other thing is that since the panels are warranted for 25 years, and the PPA, if it went for 20 years, there's also a 5-year extension inside the PPA in order to carry out to the full end of life, is if you wanted to call it end of life, even though panels have been in existence for over 40 years and still producing power. So, that's just something that is basic modeling that even the Connecticut Green Bank uses 20 to 25 year. And we run out the models for the 25 because, most customers have that ability to extend it for the 5 additional years.
Okay. And my last one is for Mr. Lynch. It sounds like the life of the solar panels in the roof might match up 25 years, 30 years. Is that your understanding, Mr. Lynch?
Yes, and that's why you notice the high school is not on this proposal, because their roof probably has between 8 and 7 to 9 years left, which means if we were to put solar panels on, we would then have to remove them to put on a new roof somewhere along there. So we just felt it better to address that when we did the roofing.
Great. Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, Dennis, just
Mr. Brown.
question. And there was a reference earlier. To the MOU. I was just wondering if that's something that could be shared. If we could take a look through that, just to understand some of the contingencies and how things map out in the agreement.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Sini stole most of my questions as well, but I do have one is, on the sheet, it says AEE can assume the role of project developer or can act as the owner's representative. How do we determine that? And is that the board's job? Is that the first selectman's job? And what is the difference exactly between those two?
It's more or less, it's really, it's more or less, project developer is really part of the owner's representative position that we take. When we say to separate them, it's like, if you didn't want us to basically help and do more of the understanding and work with the community in order to put everything together, a project developer is just going to come in and want to build the project. They're not going to want to do all the nuts and bolts behind the scenes to make sure all the proper applications are done, make sure, everything's done. That's where basically it's to the benefit of the community. Sorry, get some back. To do a representative model where we're actually able to, work with the community and make sure that all the proper steps are and processes are followed.
Okay, thank you. And one last question, maybe to Mr. Rudel, and I didn't realize this when we go through our budget, but Oxbridge consumption is so much higher than the other elementary schools in similar sizes, I'm assuming. Is that just the age of the building and partly why we're rebuilding?
Yes, exactly. We did not do any of the LED lighting upgrades in the corridors
Okay.
because we knew the building was going to be significantly altered or removed. Its ventilation system is from 1966. It's never really been upgraded. Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
it's got a big, cost per square foot right now.
Excellent.
But that number and that thing you're looking at, the column B for Oxbridge is an estimate of the new building.
Okay,
But just to answer your other question, the current Oxbridge does consume more per square foot than
Than the others.
the other, except for Tokenique, because
Okay.
Tokenique has the air conditioning system.
any other questions or?
Yeah, Adam, a fairly elementary one from me. Is there any variable reason that the solar generated could change from, I don't know, I'm looking at Henley here, 78 to something else? And if so, I know it's not a virtual net metering system, so do you get the credit for it or expense of it? And then the other question is there anything, since it's pure regulated, is there anything legislatively that would influence any of the rates or anything potentially, just so as people know the exposure or not? Thank you.
Yep. So to the first question regarding solar offsets, any of the roofs that you see here that might have had additional space on the roof basically allows, so for like Ox Ridge in existence, you can see there's a lot of open space that is available. So depending upon once we run a new calculation with all the new equipment, this number that you were just referring to being much higher, this 599, we could have the ability to size the system a little bit larger. So what we would do is, maybe go in for a larger AC KW, and this is part of where our knowledge comes in on the ZREX emissions, in order to say, well, if the footprint opens up or there is more space to utilize, we could increase the size, which then provides a larger offset in consumption.
Okay.
And then as far as the Pura goes, the state is currently having all sorts of discussions at the state level as far as what the new program would look like and how it would actually roll out. There's multiple discussions on whether it would still be behind the meter, whether it would be go to more of an in front of the meter type of program. So there's a lot of things still being worked out, and that's why right now we see it as anything behind the meter is a much larger advantage than being in front of the meter, because when you're behind the meter, you're actually offsetting those delivery charges.
But assuming you lock into like a PPA, there's nothing that Pura could do technically that would change that model once we've agreed to it. That's all I'm asking.
Oh, yes. Once you're, that's part of, yes, once the interconnection application is registered and you have and your interconnection in, they can't then all of a sudden go ahead and change that on you in the future.
Thank you.
Mrs. Parent?
Just thinking next steps, what is the board being asked to approve ultimately?
So we have to meet this particular time frame. So we would have to bring this to the board. We would have to complete whatever we have to do with the town, and ultimately it'll be an approval to go forward with the process. Mike or Rich, if you want to fill her in any more than that.
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, we have Rusty Schreiner. He's looking over the proposal right now. There's going to be some refinements to the actual size of each of the units, especially what would be proposed at Oxbridge. And then we would present it to the board to get their approval. I'm sure before approval by the board, they're going to, I'm going to have discussions with Ed Gentile and the town. And, I'm sure we'll be talking to their experiences with this project, similar type project, their costs, what they like, what they didn't like about it. So there'll be another report back on this proposal.
So given what we were doing with the other project, I actually didn't think we would have a window to actually present this, but it seems that we do perhaps have a window if we want to avail ourselves of it.
Great. Any other
Dennis,
questions?
one quick question. Sorry.
Go ahead, David.
The estimated net savings over 25 years, the $2 million, and I think John touched on this a little bit. That number, can we discount that back or get a sense of what the actual cost is just for transparency's sake? Or the true savings, I should say. Excuse me.
So just so I could understand the question, David, are you saying if utility rates do not change over the next 25 years?
No, I'm saying what's the net present value of the $2 million savings over 25 years?
Yes, we could get that for you.
Great. Thank you.
No problem.
So I'm sorry, Dennis, just to be clear, what is the time frame that we're looking at? I mean, I'd love as a committee if we had another shot to kind of look at the MOU, get the feedback that was just referenced from Rusty in the town before we had a board meeting. But if we have a time frame, then I guess we can't do that as a committee.
Right.
I don't know if Adam's answering that, or Richard, do you want to answer it?
So I think the expectation is we want to bring this back to facilities in April for kind of another go around and then a discussion on the board as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Adam.
Hi, this is Diane Boston. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask a few questions. I sit on the Oxbridge Building Committee.
Please.
Yes. So first, I just want to clarify with regard to Oxbridge that it's also a early learning program. So the scope of the energy use in that facility in the future will be somewhat different than the existing building because there's a consolidation of an early learning program on that site in addition to the elementary school. And then second, I just wanted to note that the engineers on the project had laid out a solar system for the new school and had come up with a much higher number. I think it was 305 kilowatt system as opposed to the 163 one that's laid out here. So I think that really needs to be looked at a little bit more closely and addressed. I think there's a lot more potential. And I think it's important also just to raise the question of whether we should take one step further on where we apply the solar to the public buildings, to the school buildings, and kind of step back and think, do we have maybe a broader goal of trying to get closer to 100% solar? And could we add to these locations parking structures, maybe at some schools? I know there's been some discussion about that in the past, but I think that would be something worth just reviewing as to whether we might set a goal of zero energy use at some facilities using additional solar locations outside of the roofs. So I think that's an important part of the conversation to consider. And then one other note that I had, sorry, I have my list here, is that I think, I'm sure Mike Lynch has done this, but it's important to consider future plans for the elementary schools. There are some plans in place or plans that have begun to assess changes in needs and roofs that might be removed. And perhaps those have been given some consideration, but until we've hired an architect to do the work on those elementary schools, we don't exactly know which parts of the elementary schools are going to be removed, where we're going to have additions, where we have, again, potential for future solar. So that is an area too, I think that should be addressed.
Well, the last part of your question, Diane, we addressed what the assumed removals are going to be. The two libraries and the 1958 edition, the first grade wing at Royal. But, too early to tell the size of the additions. So we did not include, we didn't try to take a guess at how big those areas would be. And regarding Ox Ridge, I know I kept telling Adam, I know I have a drawing of a solar panel layout with some figures, and
Morning.
I have it right on my computer too. I can shoot it over to you, Mike, and send it to you right now.
I could not find it, and I said, just guess and leave a lot of open space.
And Diane, we actually tried to look at sizing up kind of what they fit in those different areas, and using a panel size to just say, is this close or not close? So that's where some of that comes from. And we also agreed that there was also a lot of real estate that was left open, so that other panels could go in. We didn't know if there was just a certain reason why they only placed them in those scattered areas.
Great. Yeah, that's good to hear.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments, Mrs. Boston. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burkett. And now we will open up the floor for public comment. Michelle?
Good morning. If you would like to speak during public comment, please click the participants icon on the bottom of your Zoom screen. When it is your turn to speak, the facilitator will identify you and announce that you are unmuted for public comment. You will have up to 3 minutes to comment. There are no raised hands at this time.
Okay. Thank you. I'll
Sorry.
entertain a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Parent, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Meeting is